All right, excited to welcome William Holsten to the show. William, thanks for joining me. How's it going today?
It's great. Sun is out today. I like it.
Oh man, it's that time of year here in Tennessee where it just keeps teasing us with spring. We've had sunny and 80, overnights in the 30s. I mean, every which way we do that false spring number one, false spring number two, but it's feeling good. It's feeling good. I'm getting excited for that. William, on the show, I like people to talk about their journeys to get to where they're at. To do that, we need to know where you're at now. Could you introduce yourself to what you got going on now, and then we'll circle back and figure out how you got there?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. Today, now, I am an author of a new book I'll talk about as I talk about my journey. It's called Uh-Oh. And I'm also a mentor, a small business mentor with the SCORE organization.
Oh, nice.
Both of those keep me busy most of the time now. I retired from my corporate life a couple of years ago. I'll tell you about that later.
Oh, perfect. So this journey as an author is kind of a post-career career, it sounds like.
Yeah, but as I describe the book, you'll see it's a synthesis of all those learnings for the people I mentor on a weekly basis.
Nice. So going back, so way back when you were a kid, is an author what you pictured yourself? You were little William running around and dreaming about what you wanted to do in your future. Was it be an author, or what did you want to be when you were a little kid?
When I was a little kid, I was Bill. I'm still called Bill by my friends. Little Billy wanted to be a baseball player for the New York Yankees.
Oh, nice.
I learned pretty quick. I didn't have the talent for that, but I played Little League and those kind of things. I grew up on Long Island, went to school, went to university, got my degree in communications. I did want to communicate,
Okay.
and I went into marketing. First, I went from college, St. John's University. I went into a PR company as a intern, working on press releases for national magazines and communication companies.
Oh, nice.
That led to an advertising gig at a small advertising agency, and that led to an invitation to join a big company, a big healthcare global giant, to be in their in-house advertising department. I was a copywriter, and I was writing packaging copy and advertising copy. Later, that led to marketing opportunities as a brand manager for the same big company. I left that big company, went to another big company, got into business development. I was kind of a business development director, helping them buy businesses to grow their brands. I went back to my original healthcare company as a brand manager on national brands like aspirin and things like that. Later, and this was a big pivot point for me, I was invited to join the R&D organization. I left the marketing organization to help them ideate and come up with new product ideas. And that was the biggest pivot point in my life, because I had the opportunity to lead workshops, big cross-functional teams all around the world, to come up with new product ideas for pain relievers, GI remedies, vitamins, skincare products. It was something new every day, and I just loved it. And to get ready for that, and during that time, I got trained on a bunch of tools to help people be creative in a group setting that I have now put some into my book as tools that entrepreneurs can use to avoid making mistakes.
Oh, nice.
I did that for 12 years. During that time, I created my side gig. My wife and I created Carnival game companies. I'll explain this when you ask the right questions. We got into creating and marketing Carnival game companies to rental companies and party companies, mostly in the US, but around the world as well. We took our vacations and went to trade shows. We bought a lot of advertising in magazines, and we succeeded.
Were these games that you developed and owned, or were you kind of the middleman in that whole scenario?
We totally invented them. If you want, I'll jump to one of my stories. because
Sure. Well,
it's
I had a question. First of all,
yeah. Go ahead.
back when you wanted to be a Yankee player, you realized that that you weren't good enough to play for the Yankees. But I am guessing you probably could have played for the Mets. That's my team. My dad was a diehard Yankees fan his whole life, and I grew up aligning with my grandmother as a Mets fan, and so I know that the despise there, and you being from Long Island, I know there was a little bit of that. And then you mentioned you went to St. John's. Did you guys just win the NCAA championship or the Big East championship or something? I have some friends that are former Johnnies that were posting all about that on social media. So
They were just in the
congratulations.
news, and they won something. Honestly, I didn't catch up on it.
Well, congratulations regardless. I know those guys are big Johnnies, and they were ecstatic. So something good happened.
Yeah. Well, one side note: during my undergraduate work there, I had a class in broadcast journalism, and I had an opportunity to interview Lou Carnesecca, the
Oh, nice.
famous coach from there, in Alumni Hall. So
Nice.
it was pretty iconic to have that experience.
We were talking about your kind of journey through the advertising world. It sounded like a pretty set path. I mean, it sounded you went up the ladder, you transitioned horizontally to another company, back and forth. It
Mhm.
sounds like the typical journey. Did it feel that way to you? Were you grinding along? Was it kind of a path you set for yourself, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
It kind of I had the desire, and I knew I had the skill to write, to do communication things, but I it just kind of happened organically. Opportunities came up around me. There was a time when I was in advertising. The president of the agency came into my little cubicle and said, we're having some financial trouble. If you wanted to look for a job, it's okay. And net interpersonal networking is still big, but it's done differently now. I met people who knew people who knew people. That set me up with an interview in New York City for this big drug company from somebody through a church kind of connection who said, I've got an opening. Why don't you come in and talk to us? That led
Nice.
to the beginning of my corporate life.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's we talk about a lot being aware of the opportunities presented to you. I mean, you kind of had a little signal when he tells you you might think about finding a new job. It'd be all right if you did. I mean, that's kind of a smack you in the face, but being open to those opportunities, being aware that they might present themselves whenever or wherever, really helps develop people's paths. I see when they're successful.
Fully agree. Yeah, I appreciated the heads up. It led to something good. And actually, once I was in that company or its successors, because it got bought a couple of times for 38 years. And my job changed around me over and over again. I was kind of a survivor. I must have been a performer because they kept me. But I went from being a coordinator to this, to that, to a brand manager, to leading big businesses. And my involvement hiring companies to do ideation for my brands led me to discover a passion for doing that creative work, which led to the opportunity when I shifted from marketing in that company into R&D.
It sounds like you're just valuable. The role they put you in, you brought value to them, and having bosses that recognize that and then steer you to other things that maybe you might not be the best at, but they feel that you can excel at over time is really is a path I've seen too. So uh, were you missing something from your career that kind of took you down the path of the carnival business? This really intrigues me. It seems like I mean, obviously it's advertising. When you're in that advertising world, when you're in that marketing world, it's all encompassing. Everything needs it. But what transition was there to picking up and making carnival games and selling those?
I love the question. Thanks. Um, as a writer, I've always considered myself and tried to be creative in everything I was doing. In 1999, my sister, I'm one of 6 kids from Mineola, New York. My older sister was were helping her daughter have a Make-A-Wish Carnival backyard party. And she asked all of the aunts and uncles, including my wife and I, to rent games we could go to help them make money that day. We, in advance, the carnival was in August. In July, we called a nearby rental company and rented a dunk tank for the day. 2 weeks before the event, the rental company calls me and said, sorry, we can't rent that to you. There's a drought going on, and we're not allowed to rent that during this drought because it takes 500 gallons to fill up, and we're conserving water. I said, do you want something else? And I said, no, I'll come up with something. Then we sat down at our kitchen table and back of napkins kind of sketched out, how might you have the same experience of throwing a ball, hitting a target, and somebody gets soaked without that big 500-gallon dunk tank? So what we came up with was we went to Home Depot, created a plywood board that was vertical, and from the edge of it, we hung a basketball rim with the netting in it. And in the netting, we put a big fat water balloon. And we set it up with a pivot so that when you hit the target, it pivoted and pushed a nail through the water balloon, and the person got soaked because the water fell on them. 1 gallon versus 500 gallons. We called it the drought-proof dunk tank originally. It had a different name, but it became a game we commercialized as PitchBurst.
Okay. All right.
So
nice.
it was the itch to be creative and the opportunity to be creative. Now, that day at the carnival, this was the hit of the carnival. We made, for Make-A-Wish, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. People were lined up all day. It was 95 degrees and humid to get soaked and play. The kids, the parents, it was wonderful. So we got home the next day and said, gee, I bet we can make a business out of that. So spent a little bit of time and then hired a lawyer to find out the patent situation. It had never been done before. We filed for it and got a patent. With that, then I went to the SBA and got a business loan to establish WhirlWhims LLC. That was my company. Got a business loan, invested in making 100 of them the way we had made them. And we also invested in some trade magazine advertising to advertise it. We had them made quite a bit like I made it in my own garage with a few tweaks, out of wood with screws and things like that. We sold them to the rental market. Our first trade show was the American Rental Association. And within 6 months, we had sold 60 of these games. They're about $1,000 each.
So you're doing B2B sales there. So you were selling to people to rent them.
Yes, people who had customers who would rent it for their backyards or for other things. My book is titled Uh-Oh because shortly after our 60th unit got sold, we had major uh-oh moments when customers called and said, this wooden game is not durable enough. This broke off, the parts are broken, something is peeling off. We realized we were doomed in that business line if we kept down that path. So I'm good for the money. So if I sold you something, it messed up, I'll send you parts. I'll give you a refund, whatever it was. So we blew the rest of our bank loan money on making good, almost decided to leave, and then networked and found somebody who recommended a CAD designer who could design the same functioning game out of steel and plastic panels. So it didn't have the problems. We went and invested in that with a bank line extension. And launched that a few years later. It's still being, that was in the update was 2002, 2003, and that's still being sold today. We've sold the patent, so somebody else is selling it. So it's proven to be a lasting story.
Was that just an oversight from you? Was this something that was ever a concern looking at it and being excited about the product? Were you excited about the product and oversaw it, or was it something that you were like,
Our decisions on the materials to use for production, we didn't make them. We had them made for us in the shop. We chose the wood because our one unit worked very well the one day we did it.
The one day, right?
So we treated it gingerly, not realize we did do surveys of rental companies for their game portfolios. What do they like? What do they wish for? And we got, maybe I asked the wrong questions. We got 100% big supportive things. Yes, I'd buy this at that price. So we committed to going ahead.
So nobody really even saw the writing on the wall there of the material.
Not until they began breaking. Matt, one of your guests on a recent show, Maddie Wagoner, used the phrase test before you invest. We considered that we had tested, but clearly it was not enough to know the rough treatment some things get in a rental business. We went to Steel. Later, we had four more games after that. We had additional learnings from those things because we didn't anticipate air pumps wouldn't work or that water pumps, when you're playing in aggressive competition, behave differently than if you're pumping oil from an oil barrel.
Right. Yeah. I'm from the well, one of my careers was maintenance technician, service technician, things like that. So my brain works on the other side that yours did. I would have been looking at it going, okay, there's a failure point, there's a failure point. But you don't know what you don't know. And as much as you try to vet it out, you don't necessarily know all the things that can go wrong until they start going wrong, and you found out real quick.
Yeah, I mean, a decision point once we had the patent, I only realized in retrospect, and I wrote about it in my book, I might have tried to sell the patent or license the patent if somebody was good at these things, including the testing and everything else. We did meet a partner, the people who actually bought the WhirlWhims business patents later. That we had a fourth game called Downpour Derby. I won't go into the detail of it, but it was a water bucket spilling game, still for backyards. And they bought the patent, and the first thing they did was redesign for water park use. And I was at their shop in Minnesota, and I said, "So you got the prototype done? You're going to just start selling them?" He says, "Nope. We're going to put 2 of these in some of our best customers for the summer. And we're going to watch how it goes, see what goes wrong, no obligation to the customers. Then we'll take it back in the fall and we'll let them kick the snot out of it." That's their term. And they fixed it, and they've been successful with that brand ever since.
That's fantastic. So they were going more midway, and you were focused on the backyard rentals, like the bounce house. Bounce houses seem pretty popular right now, but it was that type of deal.
Yes, and people. I was marketing to the rental companies and party companies, but some others found us. PitchBurst wound up, the good version, wound up on cruise ships, and a large theme park company in Orlando, Florida, who has a mouse as an icon, made our game a feature of all of their hotel recreation programs. They wound up, because of that contract, being our biggest customer in 10 years.
Awesome. That's fantastic.
It felt good. That's among the things I was proudest of. I know you're going to be asking about it. Proudest accomplishment. It includes the delight on people's faces playing our inventions.
I can see that. When you have a picture in your head, and obviously you did, you're trying to bring enjoyment to people when it happens, when your product does what it's supposed to do. That I've dabbled in some of the little things like that, and when it works, it's that little heartwarming, that piece there. So at what point in either track, so you were doing both at the same time, you were continuing in your corporate career and doing this on the side, at what point was it time to exit from these, and how do you make that transition?
Another big pivot point in my life. We went down the debt hole after our wooden disaster. Fixing it became a lot. Then we had a second game and a third game. There were additional problems with those, and we continued to make good every time. we wound up borrowing much more than our revenue was returning to us. So I was stressed, working full-time, daytime, sometimes with travel, and most nights, most weekends, and all vacations were about this business and trying to right the ship and get it right. In 2009, from the trade shows, my knees were hurting, and I went in to get assessments for surgery, to have knee replacement surgery. And I was in my GP's doctor office, and they did an EKG, and they found something wrong. Long story short, they found I had quadruple blockages in my heart arteries, and I needed heart surgery to correct it. So I had quadruple bypass surgery. And while recovering of that, I realized this cannot continue. I need the day job. It pays my benefits. I was at the time 52. I had a long career, I hoped, in front of me. I couldn't continue to struggle with the WhirlWhims financially unsuccess. So we, at that point, began looking for a buyer.
Right.
And found the family name is Woog. Tom and Tommy Woog run a company called Water Wars, a very similar type of business they've been in business for 20 years, now 40. They had interest in our patents. So we negotiated over a couple of years a deal to give them the patents and trademarks to 3 of our games.
Nice.
They're the kick the snot out of it guys.
So it was you got to figure out this, or I mean, it could have cost you your life, really. That was a lot of stress, a lot of burning the candle at both ends. Were you okay with staying in the career, in the corporate career? You said it paid for the benefits. Was that the big deciding factor in which of these you were going to pursue, or did you just realize that it was time to get out of the side hustle and stick with what you had been doing your whole life?
It was a decision to get out of the side hustle, but almost simultaneously, I got moved from the marketing organization in this company to the R&D organization. My job shifted from trying to market a brand to a very creative role, leading workshops all around the world. I then did that for 12 years until I retired in 2022, and it was the job of a lifetime. It was fantastic.
It sounds like it combined both of your interests, and it sounded like you really loved inventing the games and being creative with them. Being able to transition to that into the main job must have been pretty satisfying.
Absolutely, yes. I'm lucky to be alive, and I'm lucky to have had the experience of the business failure and the support of my corporate job, to let me do amazing work.
What you talk about the business failure, but in failure, I figure you learned a lot. You mentioned what Maddie had talked about, testing it before you invest in it. Are there other key things you took away from that failure that people some common pitfalls to avoid?
Yes. Writing the book, I began writing just about the failures and others' failures. They're to it now, but I realized that alone, but first of all, it's been done, this book. So I then went back to my workshopping days and pulled from that experience tools might an entrepreneur or an individual want to use to, I call it reduce the chances of doing the screw ups that I did. And I found 10 tools that into yourself and self-diagnose where you are most prone to making mistakes. Do you get distracted? Are you on your phone too much? Do you multitask too much? So I have a tool for that. I also have a second tool about yourself, about asking yourself questions. Typically, these are, instead of yes, no questions, you think open-ended. How might we do this? Or how might this go wrong? And you try to think of all the opportunity, all the threats, and fix them. You can look at your business. There are tools called pre-mortems, where you kind of try to think in advance what killed your opportunity, your business, before it happens, so you can fix it. There are reframing and using new perspectives. Picasso was one who was famous for turning his artworks upside down while he was working on them to look at it from another angle. And that gives you an aha sometimes. Of course, checklists are very commonly used. I found in my research on other people's mistakes that there were 2 instances of airline crashes because the pilots were distracted. A landing gear light didn't go on, and the entire crew was busy on that when they ran out of fuel or ran into a mountain. That led to the industry insisting checklists be put in everything so they don't get distracted. There are ways you can leverage your customers, including mapping your customers' experience and walking in their shoes while they're using products in your category. Those many small businesses that I mentor don't have that experience. So I always encourage them, go out and find out what your customers are up to. You get insights you never thought of just by doing that. And of course, there's test and learn, or test before you invest. Take a small part of it and try it a little bit so that you can learn small things before they're scaled up.
Kick the snot out of it.
Kick the snot out of it. That's right. Then one of my favorites is looking at the external world, and I coined the term uh-oh-ology. Look at others' mistakes and learn from them. The steps there are to observe and understand. So you see what happened to whatever the problem was, but then translate that to you. What about that can happen to yours? And the most dramatic example, it's in the book, is a parachuter called Ivan McGuire. Back in the 80s, he was asked to film another parachuter with an instructor jumping out of the plane behind him. So he got this brand new camera, strapped it on himself, and he jumped out. They gave thumbs up. He jumped out of the plane, gave them the thumbs up. They jumped. The camera was working. The other couple reached for their ripcords, and the parachutes went off. He reached for his, should have been right here. It wasn't. He had fiddled so much with the camera, he forgot his parachute and fell to his death. Very dramatic. Wow. Yeah. It's one of those holy mollies. But the lesson for businesses thinking about things like that, my challenge is think about your business or your life. What key step, if ever forgotten only once, could lead to financial disaster or, God forbid, life disasters like that? So I try to translate, observe and understand, then apply to your own business.
It really, so the list, as I'm listening, you're teaching people how to think. You're not, everybody's business is different. As much as we want to say they're the same, every individual business is different. It sounds like you're teaching people how to think and look at their individual situation and apply these greater lessons to their individual.
Absolutely. I have a little, it's not in front of me now. I have a no sign, and on both sides of it, it says, think smartly and be more aware. It does boil down to that, but how to do that in your own context, it takes a lot of work and concentration.
And guidance. I think yes. Someone that's been through it before, you're a prime example. And I think your book is probably invaluable to small business owners to open their eyes to things like you had, and just materials. Just you weren't experienced in materials. That is what it is. Yes. I think that can be applied across the board. Bill, we're kind of coming up on time. I'd like to give people a taste of who you are in the interview, but really encourage them to check you out, find out more about you online. Are there places they can find you, talk about your book, what they can expect out of it, and plug your stuff, and we'll wrap up for the day.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brian. Yeah, my name, William Holsten, is where you go. It's www.williamholsten.com. I'll spell the last name. It's not Holstein. It's Holsten. And there, it's my author website. There's my biography, and there's a big feature on the book. You can click there and buy the book in paperback, in hardcover, and also ebook. There is also, for free, a self-diagnosis tool based on tool number 1 in the book that is free for download as a PDF. Give you a taste of it. If you go to williamholsten.com, the landing page has both the book and a link to the free download.
Awesome. I will have that link down in the video description. I encourage people to check out the site and do the self-diagnosis tool if it's the right fit for them, and pick up the book and give it a read. Bill, I appreciate you hanging out with me today and sharing a bit of your story. I hope you have a fantastic day, and we catch up soon.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks a lot, Brian. Take care, everybody.